Brand Alignment's goal is to help brands clear up their supply chain. For example, there's multiple ways where your supply chain could become a mess. Gray market is a well-known factor, right? Gray market is just authentic product being sold through unauthorized channels. It's not illegal. It's legal, but it's against contract, but it still messes up a market really bad. It messes up price integrity, brand integrity, and so on. Other factors of brand protection that we help with are black market goods. So that's counterfeits, knockoffs, copyright infringements, trademark infringements, most intellectual property infringements we help with. That's one aspect of our business. Overall, our purpose is to help brands redeem their brand and prevent their brand from being taken advantage of by bad actors. That's our main goal, and we do whatever it takes to do it. That's Brand Alignment. Our enforcement philosophy. Well, there's a deeper aspect to it because the idea of enforcement is very reactive, right? So someone appears, you have to take them down. Someone shows up on your Amazon listing, you need to remove them. But the thing about it is that in the United States, there's a first sale doctrine. So they have the right to resell a product that they purchased legitimately, a new product. So with the first sale doctrine, there's a lot of legal barriers that stop you from forcing a seller to remove the product. In a lot of marketplaces, they won't get involved. So the Brand Alignment philosophy of enforcement is more proactive. We're focused on proactive enforcement rather than reactive enforcement. One thing we say is that once they have the product in their hands, you already lost. By they, I mean the bad actors. So you want to prevent them from having product in the first place. The psychology behind gray marketers is focusing on how can I take a portion of the value of this brand and make money on it. They're not creating value from scratch. They're not entrepreneurs. They're opportunists. They're looking for ways to take a piece of the pie. So for example, if I'm selling a camera on Target for $250 and the typical MAP price is $300, that's $50 because it's on a promotion. So that's $50 for me to profit off of. I have to consider fees and so on. And after all fees, after shipping, after this and that, they might say, I'll make $10 per camera. And if I buy X number of cameras, I can make this much money. So they're not creating value for anyone but themselves. They're just middlemen taking advantage of it. So they're constantly, they have both eyes open, always looking for opportunities, and not necessarily illegal. Most of them are focused on legal things, right? So the idea is, how can I get a profit opportunity with as much quantity as possible of product, with as much margin as possible on a product that has as much sales velocity as possible? These are the three things that they're looking for. And they'll do anything it takes. Not all of them, but many of them will do anything it takes. They'll contact the brand. They'll try to become a distributor. They'll try to become a retailer. Some of them will lie about having a storefront. They'll say that they have a kiosk at the mall, but they don't. All just to get product and then resell the product. Some of them try to hide it. They'll use fake names on their Amazon accounts. They'll use UPS store addresses. They'll hide it as much as possible. And the idea behind hiding it is to continue hiding their gray market activities from the brand and potentially from the distributor. With clients, Brand Alignment, our first focus is understanding the client and their issues in the supply chain. So before we offer solutions, we want to know what the problem is. Where is the leakage taking place? How bad is the leakage? Who is responsible? Is this your authorized network breaking MAP causing issues? Are these unauthorized sellers? If so, how much quantity of inventory do they have? At what price are they selling it at below MAP? How much buy box are they winning? What are they taking from your brand? And then it becomes a logic puzzle. Who could they possibly be getting it from at that price if this is authentic inventory? Is there a distributor that sells it at a certain price? Are they getting it directly from a distributor, from a jobber, from a retailer? Are they taking advantage of arbitrage promotions? Is there coupon stacking opportunities on your e-commerce website? So we try to backtrack and figure out what is causing the problem. And usually it's a mix of different problems. So the first part about working with clients is understanding what the issue is. And once we understand what the issue is, we'll work together to come up with the solutions that the client needs to solve their problem. The methods came about by just doing whatever it took. So we began working with clients in 2018, and originally the goal was to pretty much just send cease and desist letters. But as anyone who sends cease and desist letters knows, that's not a 100% solution. Cease and desist letters, they work, but they work on certain sellers. On some sellers, they're not going to work, and it requires advanced techniques. And what are advanced techniques? Well, who is the seller? Where are they located? How much inventory do they have? So we started going down those roads, and those roads led us down various techniques, often involving data, involving looking at supply chain records, doing whatever it took to figure out who is selling the product, and not just who is selling the product, because that's only one of the two important things. The second important thing is where are they getting the product from, and how can we stop them from getting the product to begin with in a manner that we plug up all the supply chain holes today and we prevent supply chain leaks in the future. So the prevention model, how can we rest easy knowing that it's more and more difficult for gray market sellers to acquire product? Because the idea is this: there's a correlation between how much profit can I make versus how hard am I willing to work to acquire product. And the more difficult we make it for unauthorized sellers to acquire high quantity product, at some point they're going to say, this isn't worth it for me anymore. I'm not going to start a business in the Netherlands and go through all those tax hoops and start entities and do this and that and then ship the product across the United States if I'm only making this much money. I'm going to try selling a different brand. And if we get them to do that, then we won. There's been situations where we're working with, say, a footwear brand, and there's no serial numbering on the shoes. And these are brands that are being sold in every country on earth, of every size and every income bracket. So the product can be coming from anywhere. There's arbitrage and parallel import opportunities all over the world. It could be coming from anywhere. There's enormous amounts of inventory. There's arbitrage opportunities, there's coupons, there's liquidation. We don't know where it's coming from. And oftentimes it's coming from multiple places. We've had to deal with situations like that. And a lot of times we resolve it using data. We take a look at how much inventory is out there, and then we take a look at the brand sales data. And oftentimes we're able to narrow it down to only a few possibilities across the world. Because one thing about gray marketing, if you're successful, is that you can become very successful. And when you become very successful at gray market, you need more and more and more product, because most people, when they buy product from a brand, they're only selling it in specific authorized territories. And those territories have a maximum to how much sales they can make, how many people live in that area. If you're a distributor in Switzerland, there's only so many people in Switzerland. But if you're a gray marketer, say in the United States, you're selling to all 50 states. So you need way more size 14 men's shoes than someone anywhere else, because you're selling to 50 states. So all these outlier SKUs stand out. You're just buying so much product that you naturally float to the top of any sales sheet. And that's when the questions come. Why are they so successful in such a limited marketplace? And then when you do data analysis, oftentimes they become the only possibility. So their success becomes their downfall. And that's a lot of times how we're able to solve very difficult supply chain problems. One of many ways that we can solve them. Our first investigative experience was also with an early footwear brand. There was a potential gray market situation, and cease and desist letters only had so much effect. And we had to figure out what was going on. This was in the earlier days before Amazon showed what the seller name and address was. So we had to roll up our sleeves. There was 40 unauthorized sellers remaining on the brand's listings. And we investigated all 40 of those sellers, even the ones with 1 unit, 2 units. We're just learning how to do things. And we went down every single road possible to figure out who they were. We looked at their seller names. We purchased product and got their return label address. Then we realized if we returned the product, sometimes they gave us a different address. We went down every single possible road. We figured out that sometimes we're able to figure out what city, state they're in. And if they're in a unique enough city, we can go on the brand's website, look at the store locator, and look for all stores within that radius. So we got very creative in the early days. This was before we really understood that, sometimes it doesn't matter who they are. What matters is where they got the product from. So the earliest investigative opportunity sharpened us because it forced us to go down every road possible, even if there was no opportunity to find anything. We just figured out ways to do it. And what that did is it gave us a tool set of investigative techniques that we began using and refining over the years. Our first serious brand protection breakthrough was with a camera brand. They had serious problems, especially during Q4 in their sales. They're making something like 10% buy box on their products during Christmas, during Black Friday, throughout November, December. They had 20 different sellers winning buy box on their product. And this was a product in the $200 to $400 range for a well-known brand. And they had a lot of inventory and they're constantly replenishing their inventory. So what we did is we did the data analysis and we checked to see who it could be coming from, but it wasn't enough evidence because this was a distributor that was very successful. And a lot of times brands need a lot of evidence before they cut off anyone who's very successful because they make a lot of money for the business, especially if this is a public company. They don't want to do anything drastic unless they're absolutely certain. So what we did is we looked at their supply chain records, and the distributor was located in a country that had very transparent supply chain records. So we took an inventory of all the bills of lading, and we found out that this distributor would actually put the PO number that they purchased from the brand on every bill of lading and then sell it outside of territory to Singapore, to Hong Kong. And from there, the product would be resold from websites, often online, to gray marketers in the United States. And we can see the prices on the bill of lading. So we can see how much the distributor got the product from the brand. We can see how much they sold it for to their customers in Asia. And then we can see from the prices online how much it cost to ship the product to the United States. And then we know the Amazon FBA costs. So we knew the exact margin in every single step of the supply chain. And we had full evidence. And furthermore, the cameras had usage data. So anytime a customer turned on the camera, it would take the geolocation of the customer the first time to see what country they were located in. So we're able to take all of that distributor's data and see that 90% of the product was activated outside of territory. So that data analysis combined with the bills of lading, combined with the usage data, all formed the picture. The brand ended up cutting off this distributor, and on their next product line, the year after, they went from 10% buy box to 90% buy box. there's no such thing as a dead end case. It usually just means that it's not the right time to solve it. We need to wait a little bit longer before we solve that problem. So cases are never closed, unsolved. Rather, we look for every opportunity to solve it, and sometimes we need a little bit more time. So there's no such thing as a dead end case. In general, we try to find a way to solve it. So sometimes a dead end case, so-called dead end case, is because we don't have enough infrastructure in place to resolve the problem. So for example, we might have a situation where we know the product is coming from a certain region of the world, but we're not certain what distributor in that region and who that distributor sold to. So we might create a situation where we talk to the brand and say, hey, listen, it's a dead end case now, but we can resolve this problem in the future if you require sell-through from your distributors. And now we can create an infrastructure in the future where we're getting constant sell-through reports on a cadence, that if this happens again and new product starts coming in, we're able to identify where it's coming from in the future. So a dead end case usually means that something deeper is required to create transparency in the supply chain so that you can solve it in the future. The good part about solving a brand's gray market problem is that there's an energy in the air when they first come to you of uncertainty, of tension. They're losing money and they're not sure what to do about it. And there's oftentimes a part of them that's resigned to losing money forever. So over time, it's nice to, at first, show them that it is possible to solve this problem. Gray market is not something that you just have to deal with forever, which was taught a lot in the 70s and the 80s and 90s, that it's just a whack-a-mole game. It's not, if you take a proactive approach. So it feels good to show brands that they can fix this problem and then work with them step by step over many months and watch those numbers go down until it just becomes a new way of life. And it frees them up to stop worrying about this and start focusing on other aspects of their business. There's a few differences between regular sized brands and enterprise brands. Enterprise brands tend to have more global supply chains, more complex downstream in their supply chain life cycle. And there tends to be more red tape about certain things. So a regular sized brand, we can work with them. They might have a leak in only one area. There's a leak in Ireland, and we need to plug that up. And it's pretty straightforward. And the rest is they need to remove one coupon from their website, and now they're clean in the next 3 months. An enterprise brand usually has many different problems coming from all over the world because they have distributors in so many different countries. It's such a popular brand that there may be Facebook groups for arbitrage sellers that alert them to opportunities for this brand. There's a lot of promos. There's a lot of things going on. And sometimes if it's a public company, it's not so easy to cut a large distributor off, even when you have a lot of evidence showing that that distributor is causing issues. So there's a lot more persistence required with enterprise brands to work with the advocates within that brand to help them sell to their decision makers what needs to be done, to work with the sales team and convince them that vetting is required for certain new customers, to convince them that yes, this person is lying to you and they really are diverting product outside their authorized territory. So there's a lot of that with enterprise brands, whereas with smaller brands, the problem might be a lot easier to fix. So AI today is very focused on, right now when people use AI, they're using chatbots, they're asking questions, but those language models, they're built on sort of a general knowledge that's found throughout the internet that they've been trained on. Brand protection, a lot of brand protection techniques and knowledge are not yet within AI models. And more than that, AI models lack a brand's data. they lack their sales. AI models don't have all the information that they need to solve a brand protection problem today. They just give you some general information, and a lot of the techniques are not on point. They're just pulling from articles all over the internet. So in my opinion, the future of AI is going to be built on proprietary AI models trained with proprietary techniques and data that can specifically pinpoint a brand's problems. So you can go to the AI bot and say, hey, listen, this ASIN on Amazon, I'm having problems. This seller is on it. Where could they be getting product from? Who is the seller? And the bot can go and check to see who that seller is, go through an OSINT database that they're trained on, and then look at the data, look at sales sheets, and using proprietary techniques tell you where it's coming from. So the future of AI, I believe, is going to be much more focused on who has the best proprietary training data set to build their AI model off of. We believe the future of AI is a fully trackable, transparent supply chain. Right now, the problem with global supply chains is it's very much stuck in a past where import-export of goods was based on a handshake and eye contact, and I trust you, you seem like a good person, I'll sell you this much goods for this price. You're not going to divert it, are you? Good, I trust you. We can't do that anymore as a planet. We can't do that anymore in supply chain because it leads to these problems. Gray market is a multi-billion dollar problem. And we believe that the foundation of that problem is from the lack of transparency in global supply chain. If you can shine a flashlight on the global supply chain, you'll see everything that's good and bad in the world with products moving. So our goal is to build a software where you can see end to end, from the moment it leaves the factory to the moment it ends up in the end user's hands, where that product went. So for example, right now you have a serial number, you scan it, all you can see is the original distributor that it came from. You don't see who their customer was, you don't see what jobber they sold it to, you don't see what country it ended up in, you don't see if it got liquidated, you don't know anything about it except where it had originated at the beginning of the supply chain. And that's not good enough because these supply chains are very complex and they're getting more and more complex in the future. Now, there is positive technological developments happening right now with GS1 that's making this possible. And we're building a product called WATCHTOWER that's going to make it very easy for brands to input sell-through from their distributors into our software so we can begin the process of tracking that supply chain, almost like a provenance in art. Every single product, we're going to know where it came from. And our goal is to have full transparency in the supply chain in the future. However long it takes, we will work with brands to make sure this happens.